There's 5 trees down right on top of this house.
Tree onto a building. Is anybody injured? Can you tell? Kitsap 911.
I'm reporting the tornado. I'm not sure if all my neighbors are okay.
Welcome to Commissioner's Corner. I'm Commissioner Charlotte Garrido, and today we're going to talk a little bit about a tornado. On December 18th of 2018, a tornado landed in South Kitsap County. It actually was fairly short. It was only 2 or 3 minutes long. It went 200, 300 yards wide. But given how small that makes it sound, it really created tremendous devastation across the landscape in a particular neighborhood. On Bethel Avenue, we had businesses in a small building that were completely demolished. And in the neighborhoods nearby, on several streets, the neighbors saw losses of giant trees that had been long-standing in their community. They saw roofs blow off of houses, or partial roofs, but one entire roof blew off a house. Windows blew out. And it was landed and it was gone. And then there was all of this brush, all the tree branches across the landscape, on houses, on roofs, on the streets, and they just snapped off. In the neighborhood, people began to congregate in the street. They'd heard this loud noise, and many of them began to describe it to one another as an airplane starting up. They said they heard it, and then all of a sudden they saw debris flying by their windows or flying off their houses. And they didn't know what it was. It hadn't lasted long, and yet there was very real damage across their landscape. I spent many days in the neighborhood just walking around and talking to people, and many people were spending a lot of time on the street talking to one another, walking around and looking at the other damages that were within the neighborhood, trying to get a sense of what happened to them, what happened to the entire neighborhood, and where they could go from here. But I think that the one most prevalent and continuing attitude throughout the community, even though people were concerned about the damages, was that of optimism, of how they were going to recover, and they were talking about together how they would recover the health and beauty of their own neighborhood and their sense of neighborhood. There are so many stories to be told. I could probably narrate a number of them, but our time today is limited, and I want to make sure to introduce you to some of the fears and the hopes that washed over friends and neighbors during and after this tornado event. And I think one of the best ways to hear that is from somebody who actually experienced the event himself. He and his family were in their home when it occurred. So let's hear from John Mueller about what some of that experience was for he and his family and his neighbors. So we're out in the neighborhood now that was most impacted by the tornado. And I want to introduce you to John Mueller, who lived in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
You lived through an event that most of us will never even imagine. So I wonder what you remember about December 18th of 2018.
Well, the first thing I remembered was, first thing that's very vivid in my mind is being at work. And so I work in the shipyard along with my wife, and we had just, my crew had just finished having their Christmas party. So it was a joyous occasion. We were having a good time. And one of the other instructors had said to me, oh, there was a tornado in Port Orchard. And I said, no, there wasn't, no way. They said, oh yeah, check it out, there's a video online. So I find the video online, and it's shot from the Safeway gas station overlooking this neighborhood. And there used to be a tree in the neighborhood that would stick all the way up and has a little crook in it. And so I looked at that tree and I saw this huge plume of wreckage coming up through the tornado. And I said, oh my, I know where that is. So I got on our neighborhood's closed Facebook page because it's a neighborhood watch. We're really close. We've been close well before this tornado ever happened. And I looked at the video and I immediately posted it to our neighborhood page. And I said, hey, is everybody okay? Thinking about everybody else first. It's just the way I do.
Yes, you do.
And so immediately my neighbor Morgan says, call me right away. And I had that deep sense in my stomach, something's not right. So I call her right away and she says to me, she says, John, and she's crying on the phone. She says, John, your roof is gone. I said, what'd you say? She says, your roof is completely gone. The tornado took your roof. I said, thank you very much. I'll be home soon. So I left my office to find my wife in her office, and she wasn't there. She had just gotten done with a meeting, and she had gone to do some other little things. She had no idea a tornado had come through Port Orchard. And I finally found her, and with all seriousness, I looked at her and said, we've got to go now. She goes, what's the matter? And she described it as I looked as if a ghost had just hit me. And I said to her, I said, the tornado took our roof. And she's like, what, a couple of shingles? I said, no, the entire thing. Morgan just told me. And she was just hit with that same, what? Where are the kids? Where are the animals? What's going on? I said, just get your stuff, let's go. And so we left the shipyard. It took us 20 minutes to get over here to Port Orchard because all of the roads were already congested. And so we know the back routes to Port Orchard, came up through and parked on the other side of London, kind of ran up to the caution tape that the firefighters had. And at that point, it was, the firefighters were like, you can't go back there because there's that gas leak that was going on. And it was very, very prevalent. You could smell it. And they had closed down Harris, and they had closed down Tiburon. And they said, you can't go that way. I said, well, I have dogs, I have animals in my house. I'm the red one without the roof. The firefighter looked at me and said, hold on. I said, I have an alternate way to get around. So neighbors' backyards and so on. So we went, and he says, let me bubble it up. And he bubbled it up to the commander. And the commander said, only one person. I didn't give my wife, Beth, an opportunity to say, yes, I'm going. I just went. And so myself and two other firefighters from South Kitsap Fire and Rescue came, and we came around to the house. The first thought of the house when I saw it was surreal, because when she said the roof was off, in my mind, it was, okay, little pieces, right? You know, maybe a big chunk, but not the entire thing. So to see the roof without its hat was a shock. To see the garage door that used to be right there at the end of the driveway, it being completely pushed into and crumpled inside of the garage.
That's where it went.
Yeah, it went into the garage. The firefighters looked at it, and I looked at it. I said, I know where the animals are. Where our two dogs, they were downstairs in a kennel. And so we got through the garage, through the door, saw both of my animals, both of my dogs in their kennels, got them out real fast. Firefighter grabbed them, they went out. I said, I have another one that was down here. That's my daughter's dog. We were the dogs sitting for them all. Well, we couldn't find her downstairs. She was upstairs. Hiding under a china hutch that had landed on top of my kitchen counter. So she was huddled under that. So we got her out. Firefighter says, is there any more animals? I said, of course there is, because this is a family home. So in my son's room, the cat was underneath the bed that we had built together a year and a half or so prior. And then my daughter had a rabbit in her room. Well, there was a down power line on the other side of the door, and the firefighter looked at me and says, you're not going back there. So the firefighter took it amongst themselves to go back. He opened up the door, got the rabbit out of the rabbit hutch that the ceiling had fallen on top of. Rabbit had gotten out. I looked at the rabbit, pushed off all the insulation, put her in my jacket, and there I have with the rabbit. I've got the cat in a cat carrier. They've got two dogs, and the other firefighters got the other one, and we walked out.
Wow.
So do I remember December 18th?
Oh,
yes, I do.
of.
Very, very vividly.
And I didn't have the sense of belonging to that house that you did.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I first saw this house with no roof and with no garage door.
No roof, no garage door.
How are the other members of your family dealing with this?
Oh, wow. So I'm keeping positivity. My wife, she's trying to stay positive as well. Now we both have our down days. We do. We have our down minutes, as we like to call it, not days, minutes, where it's like, oh, this just why? And she goes, stop, or I'll go stop, and we're all still alive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. All the pets are alive. Our kids. Now, don't get me wrong. If there was 10 minutes difference, fast forward, if it was 2:10 in the afternoon, our 2 children from high school would have been here, upstairs, watching it from the front row seats. So perspective. It's all about perspective.
So you did invite me into the house
I-
before it was
I-
red tagged.
I did.
So that I had the opportunity to see how perfectly everything was situated in the kitchen and in the living room, and the view
Yeah.
out the kitchen window to the neighbor's house, and blue sky above.
Blue sky above.
And I saw the children's bedrooms
Yep.
with the insulation down on the bed,
Yeah.
with
Just
it
just jumbled.
Yeah. So it was pretty remarkable.
Yes.
And so I guess one of the other questions I have is you've talked about how miraculous it was
Yeah.
that it happened when it did,
Yeah.
so that nobody in the family was in the house at the time. I wonder where you went then. Where you couldn't live there.
No.
And actually, we keep mentioning the house, which
We
seems
just-
to be missing.
It is missing.
What happened to it?
Well, immediately my wife and I, once the fire department red tagged it, we had to really make arrangements to say, okay, what are we going to do? Our insurance company called us that night, or actually we called them that night and said to them, hey, this is what happened. And they said, excuse us? They were in disbelief as well. So we had mentioned what had happened, and immediately they gave us a main claims adjuster. And what did she do? She automatically said, is everybody okay? And then she asked, where are you guys staying tonight? Do you need food? Do your pets need food? And it was amazing. I can't express how wonderful that feeling is from somebody who has no clue who you are. You're just a customer. I didn't feel like a customer though.
Oh,
I felt like there's a family member reaching out, and so that was amazing to have somebody on the other line listening who wasn't even here. So that's good.
So you stayed in a hotel.
For 3 long weeks.
So what was the most challenging, what has been overall the most challenging about not having your own home?
I'm going to give you 2 answers. One,
Okay.
the first one being homeless. And I know it's a different kind of homeless than I would
it's
see on the
real.
street, but it's real. To have everything and to have nothing, all within one day, within 1 hour, is surreal. So my wife, that's her biggest one. Beth, she says homeless was her biggest fear. For me, my biggest challenge was having everybody separated. Because from that night, we all congregated at my daughter's house, who lives just in Mariners Glen, less than a mile from here.
Oh, how
so
fortunate.
we all stayed there. I know, she just moved out 6 months prior. So God has plans. And so we all congregated there that night, but we knew we couldn't stay in one spot. It wasn't going to happen. So Beth and I and 2 of our 2 dogs stayed at the Days Inn here in Port Orchard. My other daughter, Jasmine, she's 16. She stayed with her real mom down in Belfair, and then my other son stayed with his real dad over in Bremerton. And the bunny rabbit stayed on a friend of ours, their farm, Shannon's farm, and the cat stayed with my daughter. And so everybody was spread out. It was not a family feeling, and so that for me was hard. Trying to catch up with family dinners, because that for us is a Sunday tradition. Every Sunday, family dinners. And so for 3 weeks, it was real hard. It was, but then when we got a rental, wow, that first family dinner back together was
Was a celebration?
paper plates and paper towels, but it was good. It was let's just sit back and just talk. And that's what was hard for me, that not having the opportunity to talk to everybody in the same spot at the same time. So.
Wow, thank you. So
Sure.
I've asked about challenges,
Yeah.
and I have to comment about your positivity. It's just one of those assets that you have that really draws people to you.
Well, thank you.
What were there any good surprises during this time?
Good surprises. Wow. Okay, so first, do you know this community? And I'm not just talking this cul-de-sac or this neighborhood. I'm talking this community. Kitsap County, I'm talking Port Orchard, I'm talking beyond the walls of right where we're at. With people coming together for humanity's sake, because yeah, I have the red house, or had the red house, but we have houses all over that were really destroyed.
And we're seeing some of the
We're
work
seeing
still happening.
absolutely.
2 months later, still
And there's
under repair.
lots of work to go.
Yeah.
But to see the community come together as a whole, I mean, we didn't have politics, we didn't have race, we didn't have religion, we had people. And having people help people, now, if I remember right, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
that is.
that's a positive. I have to say this other positive that I have, okay? There's Washington State Woodcarvers Association.
Yes, I've heard about them and I've seen some of their work.
Yes, so a blessing to those folks, because they asked to come out one Saturday, and with a lot of the fallen trees that we had, they wanted to give, and what they gave was bringing the neighborhood back together for one day. And nobody sat and looked at the windows that were broken, the roofs that were off. No. Everybody sat back and we talked to each other. We watched woodcarvers work. We interacted with each other. We met each other, some of us for the first time. And that was just amazing.
And so they brought you together because they were taking the wood that had been downed on the trees and carving it into
special things for each person.
each household.
Each house,
So what does yours look like?
Well, so I'm positive, right? And
Yeah.
I just mentioned all about family. Well, I asked a wood carver who is right off of Highway 16, right here. And I asked him, I said, I'm not gonna ask for anything special. I said, but here's what I'd like. I'd like something that represents family. And he says, family? I said, yes. I said, so I've had 2 children just leave to go on their own, and I have 2 with us. He says, okay, so what else? I said, well, he goes, where was your trees? I said, well, we had a big maple and a big oak. I said, we used to have an old owl that lived in one of them, and squirrels in another one. And he goes, owls? I was like, yeah. He goes, you know what? I think a family of owls will work for you and your family. I was like, really? He goes, yeah. And so he carved Mama Owl, Papa Owl, and then in a little cove about this big, 2 little babies right there, representing the 2 kids that are home.
Beautiful.
So it is beautiful.
Wow, I'm eager to see it.
And so I have it in the house. I have to dry it first, a little bit further, but he says, when this dries out, you bring it back to me. I will finish it out for you. I said,
Lovely.
beautiful. I can do that.
Well, I do look forward to
Absolutely.
seeing it. So I'd like to pick your brain just a
Okay.
little bit more, if I
Sure.
could. You've learned a lot through this experience.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that many of us worry about storms and damage.
Sure.
What kind of advice would you give to others about how they might be prepared or prepare more for some kind of event?
Ooh, so I looked at my house and I have nothing left. I did the right things of taking pictures of some things and saving them on hard drives. However, those hard drives didn't make it.
Yeah.
So I did the right thing. What do I suggest to folks? Go ahead and get a hard drive. Take those pictures. Give it to somebody you trust, or put it in a safety deposit box. Update it every once in a while. then you'll have a record of what you have. So the hardest thing for me is going through my brain and trying to think about everything, every little detail that we have, and it's really more challenging than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you just don't expect to have to pull that many details out.
We don't, not with a tornado, but what kind of area do we live in? We have an earthquake-prone area, and this could happen with an earthquake.
Yeah.
So it could happen with a snowstorm. It could happen with all sorts of things. You never know when it's going to happen. So what did I learn? That's what I learned.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
So one last question. Could the county do anything that is more supportive in a situation like this?
So far, the county has been fantastic. They really have. They've been fantastic. I don't have any complaints at all. Listening to some of the neighbors, the permitting processes, if there was just for example, a dedicated person for the zone, all right, that might be an improvement. I know during our town hall meeting, they said, yes, we're going to go ahead and push the permits, and it's beautiful, and I love that. If there was a point of contact, an individual who then the folks in whatever disaster zone it is, whether it's this one or another one, they can go to that particular person and say, hey, here's my point of contact. Just like we did with the town hall meeting, showing everybody where each house was, what each house was going through. I think that would probably be streamlining a little bit more efficient.
Okay. I think that's a really easy thing for us to
I
do,
think
and
it
thank
could
you for
be.
the suggestion.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Actually, I do have one more question.
It's okay.
So what are your plans going forward?
Oh, well, we have selected a contractor to build a new home right here on this lot. Why? Because no tornado, earthquake, or any act of Mother Nature is going to leave us without a home, one, and two, this neighborhood. So we're building right in the same spot, and it's going to be a home, not a house, a home. That's going to bring us more memories, and it's going to be fun to watch our neighbors grow up. You know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for telling us so much about your experience.
Sure.
Your positivity is overwhelming sometimes. It is really quite wonderful. And I so appreciate you walking us through your experience, and may actually even come back to you another time or two, because I do draw a lot of inspiration from the things that you say.
Thank you.
We're really, really grateful to you, and we wish you and your family all the best going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you as well.
Thank you. And thanks for being here.